about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I want to know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today we are talking about Black love and couples therapy specifically. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we have been talking about minority mental health specifically because we don't want our brothers and sisters suffering in silence. We want them to definitely get the assistance that they so richly deserve and need. And so I have Miss Melissa Comeau, who is my very special guest, no stranger to Conversations with Nicole and to Singles Mingles, where kings meet queens. And so she is going to join me momentarily. But before she does, we are live on Conversations with Nicole, Facebook and YouTube. And this is an interactive live. We fully expect to hear from you, a safe space for us to communicate with one another. So I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? If you will, in the comments, put your city and state so we can give you a shout out. This is, again, interactive. So tag a friend, let them know they need to be on here. This is going to be a great conversation about Black love and couples therapy. Black love and couples therapy. Y'all, this month is like flying by. I can't even believe that it is July 12th, but here we are. So, I don't see anybody. Well, I see y'all, but no comments thus far. But that's okay. I know y'all will be on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and read Melissa's bio. Melissa has 15 years of experience working with couples, individuals, and groups. Her private practice specializes in relationship concerns, and she is currently the president elect for the Central Florida Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. She believes in the importance of multiculturalism and focuses her services on BIPOC, women, and couples. Melissa has experience working in college counseling centers, focusing on work with young adults, where one of the top concerns are relationship issues. Seems like that does not go away. Melissa started her career working in community mental health and nonprofit agencies, including domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy agencies, where she received training in identifying unhealthy and toxic dynamics in relationships. Melissa received her bachelor's degree in psychology, master's of science degree in education, specialist degree in mental health counseling at the Florida State University. Go Noles. Melissa holds licenses and certifications as a licensed mental health counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and national certified counselor. Melissa is also a qualified supervisor. Y'all help me welcome Miss Melissa Como.
Hey everyone. Thanks for
Hey.
having me, Nicole. I'm so excited to be here again.
Again. Yes, it is Mental Health Awareness Month or BIPOC Awareness Month. And so we definitely want to highlight some of the issues that minorities face, especially here in America. And so I'm so glad that you are here to shed some light and give some insight on what you see in your practice, and some of the great information that you give to your clients. So Yes. So I see we have Michelle on from New Jersey. Thank you for being here. She's a clinician up there. And yes, it is on with us tonight. We appreciate it. So, Melissa, please tell the peoples in your own words, who is Melissa Como? Not what you do, but who are you?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. So I always like to talk about who I am based on my culture first. So I am Haitian American. My parents were born in Haiti. I was raised in the States. I am also a wife and a mother. And I am also a sister, a friend, just, someone people can count on, basically, right? And that translates to my personal and my professional life. But I'm definitely someone who loves connection. I think that's why it comes out in so many ways. I love and appreciate connection, and I just want to make sure I make it my life's work, as well as how I navigate my personal life as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, I see my mom is here. Thank you for being here, Mom. Appreciate you. So let's talk a little bit about your practice. When did you start it, and what prompted you to start it?
Yes, good question. So I started my practice in 2017. I actually started it part time, where I was working at University of Central Florida at the time. Like I said, or you said in the bio, that I worked at counseling centers for college students before. So I was there full time, and I saw clients part time, on my time off. And then in 2022, I decided to go full throttle and then shift to full time private practice and go all virtual. And it's a decision that I, am so happy about. I'm so excited that I did it. I don't regret it one bit. It's been a challenge, of course, like everything new is, but I'm able to do what I love fully. I get to see the clients I love to work with that work best with me and vice versa, and focus on my specialty that's close to my heart, which is relationships. And so I'm just excited about it. I get to see individuals and couples, primarily people of color, talking about connection and relationships. So
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, wonderful again. So glad you're here. And so you are licensed in Florida,
yes,
correct?
yes,
Yes.
I
Which
am.
which means that you can see people throughout the entire state of Florida, correct?
Yes, which is why I love doing virtual as well. Because I'm from South Florida. I was in Tallahassee for many years going to college, started my career, and then migrated to Orlando now, Orlando area, to start my own family, which I have. And so I've been different places. I know people different places. And so to be able to get clients, even from the Panhandle all the way down to deep in Miami. So it's exciting because I get to reach people further than I was before. So
So the whole state is covered.
yes, exactly.
All right. So are you taking any new clients?
I am taking new clients. We also just added a new service. So we have a support group, and I'll share more at the end. So I want to make sure people hear about it. Yes, it's called, I think I mentioned to you last time, but it's called Healing with My Sisters. And it is with another young lady who joined my practice to run the group. She's very passionate about the group. It is a virtual group as well, so we can reach people across the state as well. And it's a space basically for people to get support. Oftentimes, Black women may feel alone, or have the support they need. Is really a growth promoting environment. So it's a space to talk about your concerns, but also to figure out how to move through them with support from a therapist, which is Kamisha. Joseph is the therapist.
Okay.
And then also for the women in the group to be able to connect with one another. And then ideally, if they hope to be friends afterwards, they can also. I think a lot of times there's like I know that I think being a therapist, and sometimes people find it odd, depending if they've been through this before, but with couples therapy, group therapy, typically it's kind of just the time that you're in with your group members, right? And so this is a group that's tailored for friendship development as well. So if people choose to be friends after or during, they can, when that's not always necessarily promoted or talked about by therapists, because it's usually kind of a boundary there for the therapeutics. But we've been able to figure out how to have both, have a therapeutic safe environment while also promoting connection, past, because we as therapists know that we're just a piece of the puzzle for people, and we want people to make connection outside of therapy. And so we made sure to have a group that does that is a therapeutic group, but also is for, if people choose, it's not a requirement, people don't have to, but if they want to grow friendships from there in a space that you came together to support, grow yourselves, and do more even after the group has ended as well. So it's called Healing with My Sisters is the name of it.
Love that. I love that because I know sometimes as adults making friends can sometimes be challenging. You know, outside of maybe work or maybe if you're affiliated with the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty cool. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thanks for sharing that. And we'll definitely mention it again at the end so that folks
Yeah.
can, possibly get connected. All
Awesome.
right. So we got a few more folks on here. I see you, Miss Keosha, here in Tallahassee. Good evening, good people. Thank you for being here. We got Mr. Enigma E. He said couples therapy. He got his notes. He's writing notes down. Yes. E.
Yeah.
His wife's name is Felicia. So yes, I know Fee is right there with you. So hey y'all.
Oh, they're both there. Okay. That's
Uh-huh.
cool. I
Normally
appreciate
they
that.
watch together. So, and then Miss Pumpkin, thank you for being here, who is also here in Tallahassee. I appreciate you. So, Black Love.
Mm-hmm.
Was it OWN Network that had the show Black?
Yes,
That's
yes,
one
yes. Documentary. Mm-hmm.
of my favorites. I love to hear the couples talking about their relationships and just how they have encountered one another and the different shifts and turns that they've made, and they were all in all ranges of relationship, from the standpoint of some were kind of newlyweds, others maybe kind of intermediary in terms
Mm-hmm.
of maybe being married for about a decade or so, and then others for decades, like 30, 40 years, and so it's so interesting to hear how people's perspectives change and how they grow, and how that impacts their relationship. So I think this is a unique topic,
Yeah,
especially as we think about just Black folks in America and some of the things that we've had to contend with. And I think we have to hold like special space for one another and have a bit more empathy for one another as a result. So I'm going to let you go ahead and give us a little bit of you know,
yeah.
intro, but that's what's on my heart as it relates to this
No,
topic.
I want to know what's on your heart. I want to know what's on everyone else's heart. So y'all, please don't be shy in the comments. But no, Black Love is so yes, the show. I should start off with what you said about the show. It's definitely an amazing show for those who have not seen it. It's a more of a documentary style. It has regular people all the way through celebrities, as Nicole was saying, and so it definitely talks a lot about romantic relationships, marriages, and couples and things like that. I will say before I go into the Black Love and couples therapy kind of intro for me is that when I promote Black love, like on my platforms, I actually promote it in a general sense of all types of Black love. That's why you heard about the Healing with My Sisters group, which is about Black love amongst women, sisters, other connections and friendships and stuff. So I really want to continue, because I have been for a while, promoting Black love in a general sense. So I just want to say that I see romantic Black love as a form of Black love, right? And so there's self-love, there's family, there's community, there's, if you follow me on IG, hopefully you've seen, or you will see if you haven't followed me yet, like how much I want to promote and talk about it as a holistic perspective, because the show Black Love on OWN is an amazing show. I love to watch it, and it promotes romantic Black love really well. And I also just want to kind of plant that seed for those of us, because it is a term that's used a lot when it comes to romantic. But if you really think about it, it's not just romantic, right? So I want to make sure, and as we think about Black love across the spectrum and different forms of love, it just helps other forms of love. You know what I mean? So as we think about our romantic relationships tonight, or couples therapy, right? That's one form of it. And that any other relationships we have, our friends, our family, how do those other relationships affect, your romantic relationship, right? Let's just say that for tonight, since we're focusing on romantic. But I think that's important to say, because I want to make sure that that we promote it as a holistic type of love across different, types of relationships, and not just romantic. But for tonight, we are focusing on romantic love. So, which is why, as I was talking to Nicole about prepping for tonight, I wanted to call it Black Love and Couples Therapy to really specify that we are talking about romantic relationships. And that is honestly what I see most in my practice, although I promote all forms of Black love. People don't normally call therapists for their friendships. They talk about their friendships and stuff when they get there, but usually they call in for, romantic type stuff, or family is probably the other piece of it too, that they tend to call in for. And so it is something that is passionate to me. I want to make sure that I continue to advocate for Black love and be someone who's a supporter of it, and someone who can just be a listener and bridge some of those gaps with people. I don't want to say for people, with people, because we're doing this together. It's not all on me, right? And so I think couples therapy is a form of how to do that. And I know that is something that people, someone was taking notes in the gifts in the chat there and the emojis. And it is something I think that's kind of like a smoke screen. You know, people kind of know like what's behind, you know, couples therapy if you've never been before. And I thought being able to merge cultural perspective with the Black love part with actual couples therapy is so important. And so that was part of my idea of talking to Nicole about having the talk tonight.
Indeed. So let's talk about the Black love piece in terms of the cultural perspective. What are your thoughts about what differentiates it?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm gonna try to keep it simple. So I think mainly it's historical, right? It's cultural, and also that as Black people, we're not a monolith, right? So I said earlier, one of my first identifiers that I'm Haitian American, right? I have clients who identify as African American, who identify as, they call themselves Black, who identify as Jamaican, you know, so all different types of Black people, which is amazing to be able to work with, right? And so to be able to think about how we experience our relationships within our culture, right? So there's just certain things that we do based on being Black or based on being of a particular culture that may be different from others, right? And so when we think about relationships in our romantic form, I think when we choose to be with someone who is in a similar racial or cultural background, some of that stuff is kind of obvious, right? Like, okay, we kind of do similar things. I think when it comes to some of the differences amongst ourselves, maybe other cultures, and I also have clients who also are non-Black as well. So I'm able to, you know, see everybody. But what I do see in the difference of is there's just some of the same things we kind of see in other situations, from the stressors that we particularly face as Black people that do kind of seep into our relationship. So for an example, so I do have heterosexual couples. And so a lot of times the Black men that I do end up working with through the couples work, talk about how eventually, at first it doesn't necessarily start off that way, but eventually end up sharing how they find it challenging to share kind of how they feel with their partner. And sometimes the female partner, the wife or the girlfriend, may be surprised sometimes about how much their husband or boyfriend may have to share or say in terms of how they're feeling. So do men in general, are they socialized to not express vulnerable emotions? I think we all probably can say yes. You know, it's like boys don't cry kind of theory, right? But how is that different for Black men specifically, right? Because it's not the same for all men. And so if, let's say, for example, if we think about what we call, what they call it, what's the phrase? Intersectionality, that's the word. So let's think of intersectionality of two different identities, right? So you have male in this example, and then you have Black, right? So men are already expected to be strong, you know, don't cry, you know, suck it up, you know, all these different things, right? When it comes to being a masculine male, right? That's how we're, you know, socialized. And then we have Black people who are also socialized to be strong, don't cry, you're not going through no pain, you know, and this regardless of the gender at first, right? But if you put that together, then you have two strong points of you can't express yourself, right? Kind of thing. Because if y'all want to follow me, let's just imagine, right? There's two, we just call them boys, not even men, let's say school age boys, you know, and this is how the world would see them, maybe not how we would see them. But if you see a young Black boy crying versus a young white boy crying, how do you think the world would look at them differently? Not you, let's just say the world, because I don't put anybody out there. In that example, you can already kind of see or sense like, oh yeah, I can kind of see how maybe there would be more sympathy on one side versus the other, right? So as they grow older, now they're full grown men, right? How does that kind of, the expectation is for them not to share. So that's just one example about how, and I'm using just that example of how culture, in this case, Black love, is so important, because thinking about how those messages are amplified, you know, in this example of men and then also Black.
Indeed. All right. So Haitian Speed said there's sometimes a difference culturally based on where people are from. Example, someone from New York in a relationship with someone from Mississippi.
I love that, because that's an example of like not all Black people are the same, right? So a Black person from New York would be different from a Black person in Mississippi. So yeah.
Exactly. So location matters, right?
Yes.
All right, we got Mr. Warren Cave, who's here in Tallahassee. Thank you for being on here, my brother. And Kosi, he said he was lost, but he's here now. So we're glad you found us.
That's one of my peoples, yeah.
All right. All right, cool. So Warren, you got a question. All right, Warren, let us know. Put it in the comments. So, yes, you talked about the whole dynamic, the intersectionality of, being Black and being a man, which basically equates to the inability to express yourself because you got to be strong, you can't cry, that sort of thing. And so I've heard that quite a bit on the show. And not that men are complaining, but they are expressing themselves from the standpoint of um, kind of feeling a bit torn, right? Because they don't feel comfortable expressing themselves. They don't want to be thought of as soft or punk or what have you. And this whole hard kind of persona is not really them either, but so it's like, where do they fit in? We talking about a lot of kind of deprogramming and reprogramming that needs to be done.
Yes, for sure. I think that's so important. I think, and part of my work with couples therapy is, one is to get, in this example of a heterosexual man and woman, Black couple, getting the man to the point of expressing. And and let me just say this, not all men are the same either. Like, I have a range of different type of men that show up. Some are completely closed off. Some are like, I don't even know, literally say to me, I don't even know what emotions are. Like, I feel things. I don't know if I ask them how they feel. Like, that happened to me not too long ago, a few weeks ago, a male client, asking, we kind of joked about it, like, a little, because I use humor in my sessions, and I had asked him how he felt, and he gave me a feeling word, and we're like, oh, you actually have a word, right? And then there's some men who are expressive. They come in the first session saying, this is how I feel. I feel like she doesn't hear me. Like, so there's a range. So the male may have a different range of like how they express their emotions, but I think the difference is that for the most part, they're getting the same messaging. So the different range of men that express different levels say similar things in terms of how they feel about how people take their emotions or not take their emotions. That's kind of what I see when it comes to that, is that, my work is to kind of help them to either start expressing or to continue to express, right? If they already kind of started. And then for the woman partner in this case, to kind of give space for that. I talk about that a lot with my, I sometimes split up my couples in individual sessions, and I say that to a lot of my, when they're a stuck point, I try to keep them together in my sessions if I can, but if they're a stuck point, I sometimes separate them and I talk through stuff with them individually. And a lot of times that's a big topic for a lot of my women clients and couples. Is like, you gotta give them space. You know what I mean? Like, you're asking for vulnerability, for intimacy, let's say, for example, or words of affirmation, whatever it is. But then he feels constricted because he feels like he can't say certain things, right? So it's interesting because it's like sometimes we ask for something, but if someone doesn't feel free to be themselves in all forms in that time, then it's hard for them to deliver what you're requesting, because there's a bound feeling, like a restricted feeling. So if they feel restricted overall, kind of in a relationship, or mostly, then to ask, of something that you may need, which is fair, it may be hard for them to deliver that because they're using so much of their energy to keep themselves protected or to keep themselves constricted or to avoid fights, or so then that ability to like do all of that, so to speak, may be a lot. And then it may seem like in this case example, the woman partner, the guy doesn't care. It's not that he doesn't care. It's like, well, I'm already trying to do all these things, and then you're asking this from me. I don't know how to do all that. That's pretty much what they end up saying,
Got it. So we got a few comments. We got Benicia Hires on. Thank you for being here. She is a clinician here in Tallahassee, and also focused on Black men. She is in particular.
Oh, awesome.
Yes. And Warren, I see your comments. Fine. Get your magazine. Yes, I will sign it. All right. E talked about feeling free is important, and that is a huge contributing factor for men. So you talked about a safe space, right? And so with that safe space, or giving space or holding space for men, I think is big. And a lot of times men don't feel comfortable because they don't feel free.
Yes, exactly. And I think people don't understand. I think because some men, or a lot of men, can compartmentalize like their feelings and situations, they kind of expect them to continue to do that, but then give me this I'm requesting. But depending on how deep that request is, that's what a capacity is. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, you want me to do this, I'm trying to do this, and then now you want me to go here? It's like, I already got all this going, Right. And so it's the ability to, it doesn't mean they can't do it. It just means like with the circumstances given to them or that they're in, it's a lot to have to kind of manage. You know what I mean?
So E said, what I love about my wife is she allows me to be me. Come on, Fee.
All right. Great example. Thank you, Enigma.
Fee, let E be him. I love it. All right, Marjorie is on. Thank you for being here, Marjorie. She said, I love the change in representation via social media to encourage men to express their emotions. Look up Black men frolicking, just enjoying running and rolling in the grass, enjoying the sun, smiling. It was beautiful to see. Yes, indeed. All right. And Kosi said, I believe for many men, we understand that our decision to be vulnerable can and often is weaponized against us. The idea of being soft or weak is something that's sometimes perpetuated by loved ones. Absolutely.
I would even say probably most times perpetuated. And I say most times because those are the people that you're probably going to be expressing it to, right? Like so I would imagine most men are not going to walk on people they don't know, you know what I mean, and start expressing. So likely they're going to be expressing the people that are closest to them, which are the people mostly perpetuating it. And this is not something that I'm not saying everyone's doing it like on purpose, you know what I mean? I don't think like, for example, in the girlfriend, wife and husband, boyfriend example with those, that what I said as far as giving space, a lot of times I see that women don't understand how deep their partner's emotions can go and can be. And so a lot of times when the husband or boyfriend gets to express themselves in the session, I hear often that they haven't heard it that way before. And there's a mix. Sometimes some guys like, I told you that before, or some guys, I didn't want to tell you that. So it depends. But there is a theme of like, I haven't heard that. And whether or not they did, I think is not the point. Is more so about like, if they did, were they able to take it in? I think that's the biggest piece of it.
Yeah. No, again, good points. So one of the things that I want you to kind of talk about is how to avoid taking your partner for granted. Because I think over time, like, I've never been married, but I talk to a lot of people who are married, and it often seems like there's this kind of, I'm gonna call it a taking for granted, if you will, right? And so it's like, how do you avoid being so common with someone? And I know it's the day in and day out living, and that kind of, there's a familiarity, which is good, but it also can be negative, or, and I don't want to call it bad, but it can be negative as well. So how do you kind of fight against that?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, you're right. I think people get comfortable is another way I like to say, they get comfortable with each other. They get into the routine. I think you're saying day-to-day stuff. If they have other responsibilities like family, kids, we all got bills, that's always something. So there's so many things that I think take up our mental, and our emotional space throughout the day, that sometimes it can feel like you're just fitting your partner in. Right. So I've heard that a lot of times. That I have a lot of couples who are professionals, who are busy, different things. And sometimes there's sessions that we're just talking about how to find time together. Like that's that's just the time of the session that we're talking about, or the topic in the session we're talking about, to find time together. And I think what I've discovered is how we can start to put whatever our partner relationship is at that time as a priority. So it can be hard to do that, right? So when you wake up in the morning, like if the first thing you're thinking about is running out the door to go to work, which of course we gotta go to work, we got bills, like I said. But if it's not, oh, let me say good morning, or let me turn over and give a kiss, let me say, how did you sleep? Like, not to say that's gonna fill in all the connection, but we have to be realistic with our lives, right? And lifestyles and expectations. I think it's what you lead with. I always say that in different forms when I talk about things. Is like, if you lead with what your intentions are, which we don't always do that. That's the thing. Like, we don't always lead with our intentions. And so it gets missed, right? So if we lead with our intentions, then you're, rather than fitting your partner in your life, you're fitting your life within your personal life, so to speak, including your partner and that kind of thing. So that's how I like to talk about things in small pieces, right? And to build mastery with it, to do over and over again, different ways, and have that be the simple things, so to speak, rather than feel like, oh, I have to do this grand vacation, or, do this big old gesture. Like that, of course, is, nice, and we want to include those too, but you can't do those all the time. And that's what I found with my couples too, is like being able to find the time to, what we call quality time, for example, is hard. And so if we keep trying to find this time that feels impossible, then we're going to get discouraged and we're not going to do anything. And so if we're able to say, okay, well, what can I do, how can I fit it in? How can I think about my partner first? And that's helped the couples I've worked with too, just by that simple, like, what do you like? I've talked to some couples about that when they come home, because some people are stressed from work. It's like, okay, if the first thing you do is to complain about work, then of course you're not going to be in a mood to connect. You know what I mean? For some people, it is a venting and they need to get it off their chest. But for some people, it's also a spiraling, a dwelling on it. And so maybe hug and a kiss, maybe let's talk about something fun or whatever. Like whatever, every person is different. So if you find it hard to connect at certain points, finding the times that make it easier for you to connect and just recreate that, whatever that looks like for you. So simple things, find what works and just recreate it.
No, that's great point. Thank you for sharing that. We are at about halfway, so I want to just do my quick station ID, and that is to share with those of you who are just joining us. I am on with Melissa Comeau, licensed therapist out of the Orlando area. We are talking Black love and couples therapy. It is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And so Black love is very appropriate for the month of July. And we have been talking about some of the things that Black men in relationships face, Black women in relationships face, and how we can kind of, tap into those things, trying to get the Black men to express themselves more, trying to get the Black women to hold space for them and accept them for who they are, allowing them to be vulnerable, having empathy for them, and for both parties to consider their partners, so that there's not this kind of taking for granted and getting too comfortable with your partner. So I see we have Sharice Du Bois on with us. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Warren Cave has a comment. He says there are many reasons why some men, including me, don't open up. In my personal life, mentoring and counseling, I've come to think that the stigma of being soft or weak is the greatest brick wall that's hard to tear down. And if we feel as if we're failing, I really believe that being led by the Holy Spirit on where to get us to open up is always needed. I've been married for 18 years and I still struggle at times. Thank you for sharing, Warren. Yeah. So that stigma, that whole soft and weak thing is huge. It's a big barrier.
It is huge. I wanted to, so if it's okay, I wanted to offer something from the woman's perspective, because this is just how my brain works. Like with couples therapy is looking at both sides. And so we just laid out, I think, beautifully the male's perspective, which I'm so happy we led with that, right? Because I think we often tend to lead with the women. So I'm so happy we led with that, and the audience is like so engaged with that part. Yeah. And so I want to offer something similar to what I did with the men, but for the women's perspective, right? So we think about intersectionality of being a woman and being Black, right? So being just a woman, right? Don't think about race yet, just a woman. There's expectation to be soft, right? To be nurturing, to be open, to be vulnerable, right? But then you have our, Black history and culture and different things, and expectation is to be strong. So before we talked about the men and the Black men, right? Men having to be strong, Black people having to be strong. So Black men having to be strong, like super strong. Don't express yourself, don't be vulnerable, all the things we just said, don't cry. And for women, we have two opposite, right, things. You're women, so you gotta be soft, you gotta be nurturing, you have to express yourself, be vulnerable, take care of everybody, right? But then you're Black though, so you gotta be strong, you can't cry, you gotta do everything for everybody, you can't take a break for yourself, right? So women are getting conflicting messaging. Men are getting amplified messaging, and then women are getting conflicting, Black women.
Listen here, wait a minute, I gotta pause, because every time you said you Black, you gotta be strong. Like, Black people can't be weak, period, at all. Like, at no time. You got to be strong. The whole time. You just got to be strong.
All the time. But then if you think about, for the women in the audience, I would love for you to share, whoever wants to come forward, giving examples. But I know for me, I'll speak for myself. I feel like, yeah, as a woman, for example, I have a younger brother, right? And I remember growing up, my dad would always have him go bring out his trash. And so I'd be like, Dad, like, why is my, and it's like right downstairs. Like, it's nothing, we live in an apartment at the time. And I'm like, Dad, why can't I go throw out the trash? I'm older. And he's like, no, you're a girl. You can't throw out the trash. He has to throw out the trash. And I'm like, my mom would say, she's older. Like, she should be able to, do certain things. And so we would have this dialogue. And I always remembered that. And that's coming from a place of him protecting me. Obviously, I love my dad to death. I'm a daddy's girl.
Right.
But growing up, the messaging at the same time is like, oh, you got to be soft. But all the women in my life and my family are super strong women. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, okay, am I supposed to be this or this? I mean, was I thinking that literally growing up? Of course I wasn't. But as an adult looking back, I'm like, oh, that is kind of confusing, kind of thing. And so I think that is a challenge,
Yes. Yes. It's like, I'm thinking like, no wonder this thing is so complicated.
You see how that goes? This is what I go through my sessions, Nicole.
Yes, it's a little insane there. Okay, so wait, we got several comments. Venetia said, continue to operate from a place of appreciation versus expectation. This could increase our partner's desire to prioritize the relationship because they're giving positive reinforcement through gratitude and positive affirmations. Yes, agreed. Thank you. Sharice, I just love, especially Black love. Thank you. Yes. All right. And we got Miss Rashonda on. Thank you for being here. Haitian Speed, one population that gets overlooked in the Black love conversation is the Black people that are incarcerated. Listen, they got a whole show for that. Life at the lockup. It be some love going on Life at the lockup. I'm just saying. Anyway, we got Maya on. Thank you for being here, Maya. She said that's so good. And Maya is engaged, about to be married in August. So yes.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
And Roz, she said, treat the men's feelings the way they want them to treat ours. Yes, Roz, absolutely. Roz is looking for the brethren tonight.
Yes.
Stephanie said, OMG, that show is a trip. Yes, it is. All right. So yeah, no, I agree. That's a lot. Like, again, it's no wonder people are struggling. Black people are struggling. Black love is struggling, right? Because we got all of these conflicting things. You can't be soft. You're supposed to be hard. You can't show emotion. You can't cry. It's just, no.
Yes. And that's why I usually call myself on IG your favorite relationship therapist. Like I say, I'm your favorite relationship therapist, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually I'm like, I'm gonna start calling myself the Black love advocate, because I'm like, I need to advocate for this love, because I think people are just expecting certain things. And I think to be realistic about what we're dealing with, in terms of our culture, and to speak on it in a way that's honest, that is caring too, you know what I mean? That kind of thing, because we have to love on ourselves, as you always say, Ms. Nicole, we love on ourselves first, but that's why it's unique, right? Black love and couples therapy is unique because of these things. We can always, go back to slavery days and all that, but we know all that, you know what I mean? Like, what does that mean for today? You know what I mean? Those things obviously have historical implications, but in terms of like the messaging that we're still getting in 2023 is what we're dealing with in our couples therapy, and being able to talk about these things with each other. And the thing that gets the stuck points with people and couples and relationships and stuff is not being able to be vulnerable, like not being, even if it's, if it happens chronically, then there's just a complete disconnection. But most relationships have some moments of disconnection. And I do want to say that for people to know that if you have a rough patch or a tough time in your relationship, that's normal. That, not to think that that's something wrong with your relationship, but at the same time, to figure out how you bounce back. I always tell my couple that how you bounce back is more important than whether or not you had a moment of disconnection. Like, expect those to happen. But it's, how do our moments of disconnection look? How does our love look, right? That's the difference. That's why Black love is so important to me, because I want to be able to highlight those things and not put us in a box with everybody else, because it's just not the same.
It's not. So Maya says she just left marriage counseling, so she's completely tuned in. This has been so good tonight. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Maya.
Yeah. So again, we've talked about, and I'm going to refer to my phone, because I before we came on, I was telling you about a post that a clinician made from a book that she's reading. I think it's called All About Love, and I think it's by Bell Hooks, but don't quote me on that because I'm not exactly sure. She didn't give all of that. But the excerpt that she posted talked about basically talks about the difficulty with loving. That this person, who is a woman, is speaking about men who were emotionally wounded and who appeared to not be interested in being loving, even though they desired love. And so I thought that was pretty profound, that they weren't interested in being loving, even though they wanted to be loved. And that this caused her to be afraid to be intimate. She felt like she kept choosing the same type of men who weren't interested, and as you and I kind of called it, they weren't emotionally available. And so it was unfulfilling. And so I think, because we don't really appreciate all of these dynamics that we've talked about tonight, we can take on, like, we can put up this wall, like, this sort of like the wall that Warren was talking about. And now, all men are in, I could do bad by myself. And, we develop these narratives that we continue to tell ourselves. And as a result, I believe words have power and have energy. So we put that out. That's exactly what we're going to get. All right.
I believe, yeah. Like, there's something else with that, what you're saying. Like, it's actually a part of a couple's theory too, if you think about it, it's practical, right? So if we get to a point of not wanting to try, and I literally talked to a couple like this right before we came on about, like, feeling discouraged, because that's a real feeling. Like, you could feel like you're trying, and it's just not hitting, it's just not getting there. You're like, well, what's the point? You throw your hands up, kind of thing. And obviously that is a point of discomfort, pain, hurt that's happening. That's why we want to give up, because we don't want to get hurt or rejected again. That's a normal feeling. That needs to be addressed, obviously, right? That feeling needs to be processed, talked about, written, prayed, whatever we need to do to get through it. But if we don't try, it just won't happen. I think that's just the reality of it. And the theory talks about, if there's two withdrawn people, then there's nothing to work with, right? So for me as a couples therapist, it's almost, it's going to sound funny to say, it's almost better to have my couples fighting, because at least they're talking. You know what I mean? But if they're not saying anything to each other, to me, whatever, there's nothing much to work with. And I do talk therapy, right? So I don't do yoga or any type of other type of things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if that's the time where we're doing the treatment or the therapy, the conversations, then, and there's nothing, and if this is in front of me, let's say as the professional in the space, and it happens at home, then there's definitely nothing happening there. You know what I mean? So whenever there's points of like disconnect or withdrawn, especially for long periods of time, then there's no attempt and no effort. And then people sometimes wonder, like, why, how do we get here, or why are we still here? And it is obviously from the fear of trying again, whatever that trying means for that person or that couple. But that's actually what's needed to get to whatever that next step is. The thing that and I'm gonna say this one thing and then pause. Like, I always tell people, like, the thing that you don't want to do in a relationship usually is what you have to do to make it work. Because if it was something that you wanted to do, you would have done it already and it would have been fine. So, but if you're having a moment of contention with your partner, if whatever they're asking of you or is a, issue, and it's, it's not getting better, it's not working, and you really think about it on your side of things, whatever's being a request of you, and you really, either you feel like you don't want to do it, or you feel like you're doing it, but you're kind of, half doing it, so to speak. If you really think about whatever that thing is, that's the thing that needs to be done to get to whatever that next, on both sides, obviously. So so that the excerpt from the book is an important one, because it's real. We get discouraged, we get withdrawn, but I just know that if we just stay withdrawn, then nothing's gonna happen.
So I got so many thoughts. And Haitian Speed, I see your comment. I'm gonna get to it, but while we are on this, at this point right now, I gotta make this comment. So one of the things that I experience sometimes with the married people that I talk to is kind of like this, they don't want the other person kind of getting one up on them. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't know what they're talking about, and they got to prove their point. You know what I'm saying? It's like, they tried me. So now I gotta get back, or whatever the, whatever that is. But yeah. And so that part, I just, Okay, again, I ain't never been married before. All right, so I'm prefacing this, okay?
You're fine. You're fine.
But my thought is, for married people, we on the same team. We are on the same team. So it shouldn't be us against each other, but it's us against the problem.
Yes.
How are we going to solve this issue? We together, teammates. How?
I'm with you. I mean, I always tell my couples this too. Like, just because you know something here doesn't mean you feel it here. Until you feel it here, nothing's gonna move. Right?
Yeah, they feel it there, but their heart has hardened somehow.
Well, in this example that you're sharing, when I say feel it here, meaning feel it for their partner. I should have prefaced that. Not feel it, because you feeling your feelings all day. That's I'm with you on that. So they're protecting their own feelings, right? But they're not feeling it for their partner. So what I talk about my couples is like being in your own emotional bubble. So if you think about, if you're in a bubble, you have a protection, you have a field. You may be able to see each other, talk, laugh, whatever, but it's a barrier there. And anytime there's a moment of connection, you just bounce off each other. There's just nothing happening. You're just bouncing. You know what I mean? Because you're so much in your field of emotion and your protection that is not allowing for space to connect. You know what I mean? And so when we think about, the example with, I can say people being petty, right? My couples, y'all just being petty sometimes, got all this therapeutic language. Y'all just being petty sometimes, That pettiness comes from trying to protect yourself because you don't want to be hurt again, whatever that hurt is,
Yes. Yes.
And so you may hear your partner, so they may be like, oh, okay, we talked about it, we're fine. They may understand, okay, I see where my partner's coming from, that's cool. But if they stay in their emotional bubble and not feel where their partner's coming from and get out that emotional bubble, then that's why they're going to say like, okay, we cool, but then you had a little thought about this, little thought about that, and it's not really making any movement. It's just y'all saying things. Okay, I'm going to try. Are you really going to try? Or are you just saying you're going to try? Right. Ask yourself that. Don't ask nobody else, because only you know if you're really going to try. And what does that trying look like?
Indeed. So Maya's got a question. She said, what is your advice for couples who go from mixed methods of communications to assertive communication? I know I can be a passive communicator and will shut down if I'm not heard. However, I do know that if I'm not communicating the need, he won't know. So I'm open to all suggestions.
Yeah, great question, Maya. So I'm an emotions girl. Like I talk about, if y'all engaged by now, like, because I have clients that call me about communication, conflict, infidelity, all these different things. And so in my practice and my training, I always feel like, and I tried it different ways too. Like I've tried it where I, teach people communication styles and like, okay, say I statements and, repeat back what your partner says and like all these things. But then what I find is that if people don't, if people are in their emotional bubble, like I just said, they're going to forget all that information, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to forget it. They may be able to retrieve it later, but in a moment when they really need to use it, they're not going to be able to use it because they're in their own emotional bubble. So in that response, what I would offer you, Maya, is being able to process whatever your emotional feelings are at that time, or your emotions or your feelings at that time. And process could mean, different things. Can be writing it down. I don't know if it was you that said it, but if you have a therapist, talking to your therapist. I do want to caution against talking to friends and family. I'm not saying you can't. That should be a whole other topic, Nicole. I'm not sure. But like talking to friends and family, you want to be careful about that because of, they're part of your life and so is your partner. So I'm not saying not to, but you just got to be really, really careful. And I don't want to get on a tangent, but yeah, talking to people, being careful about that. So writing it down, if you're a spiritual person, if you go to prayer, talking to your therapist, and then again, the friend and family is an option, but you gotta be really, really, really careful about that because you gotta be protective of your relationship as well. I would say. So you have to move through the emotion enough to feel comfortable and safe enough to eventually express and assert yourself. If you're in your emotional bubble and you're like just in your feelings, let's say, how we say in our culture, in your feelings, you're not really gonna want to express, and if you do, you're going to do it partially, not going to be authentic. It's going to be something that's being protected. And so you have to let yourself move through the feeling first to be able to actually say what you're trying to say.
Indeed. So I agree with Haitian Speed, who said good answer.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, that statement that you made about, and Rashonda said, do whatever you don't want to do in order to get to the better place. That I think that's powerful. You can't halfway do it. You got to all the way do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I say this too to my couples that because you have to ask yourself that question if you're willing to do it. Because of course, if you're not willing to do it, this goes to the self part of it, the self Black love part, is then maybe that's something that is too much of a sacrifice for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard for people to admit because they want to keep their relationship and keep their values too.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they conflict.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means you have to let one of them go.
Yeah.
And we know if we let go of ourselves, what does that mean for the rest of your life? You know,
Right.
I'm not saying leave your partner, but what I'm saying is if they're conflicting, then so I'm not saying to sacrifice yourself and to, do whatever. So that statement was about what you're willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not self-sacrifice, it's not going to hurt you. If it's not going to, cause all this, drama and trauma in your life, and you just being petty, then yeah, you probably thinking you don't want to do, you got to do. But if you don't want to do it, you could ask yourself, why don't I want to do it? And if it's a deeper reason, then of course explore that. You know what I mean? Figure out what that's about. Maybe express that to your partner. Maybe they might get it, and they might be like, you know what? Let me ease up on it. I didn't know it was that deep for you. Kind of thing.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, really what you are expressing now is my theme for 2023, which is know thyself, because I think we really need to spend time with ourselves and even identifying these things. Like we have talked about some really core values, core emotions and things of that nature tonight. And so, I know we've kind of gone through it kind of quickly, but really you need to kind of understand who you are before you even get to a place of being with somebody else. Do the work. Like,
Yes.
really do the work. Like, even for you to, like the example that you gave about your dad and your brother and the garbage and all that sort of stuff, if you didn't have that type of self-awareness, you wouldn't even know that could potentially be an issue for you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Rashonda, what if you have done that ultimate sacrifice several times but continue to get the same result from your partner? Then it can cause for bitterness.
Yeah. And I think that's true. And that creates resentment, right? I would say that this is where we want to do the checking in, right? Because several times to me it seemed like a lot, and so I would say each time we make the decision to do that thing, whatever that thing is, a sacrifice or whatever. And maybe it's not, and for some people, maybe it's sacrifice, some people, they're just being petty, right? I asked that question really to challenge people to think about why they're not doing that thing that's going to help the relationship move forward. Mm-hmm. And so if it is, a petty thing, then yeah, you probably can practice letting that go. And if it's something that's a deep sacrifice for you where it gets to a bitterness or it gets to a regret, a resentment, kind of thing, then, of course you can't walk it back if you've done it already. But, ideally what it would have looked like is to check in with yourself each time you choose to do that. Because it's still your decision. Probably say, well, they made me do this. They made me. No, you chose to do it or not do it. Right. But we're choosing to be in this relationship as well. You know what I mean? And so I think to opt out of doing the thing that's going to potentially help it move forward. The other piece of it is you won't know if it's going to work unless you try it. Right. That's the other piece. And so either you let it stay how it is, or you walk away from it knowing that you just did what you were comfortable doing and you didn't get out your comfort zone. Mm-hmm.
Or, and again, I'm not trying to tell people, never will I ever try to tell people about their relationships and whether they should leave or not. But, you got to really consider, if you are doing whatever that thing is and they aren't willing to make that change, then in my mind, it seemed like there's a lack of love or respect going on, right? Because, you are continuing to do whatever it is to get you to that next point and they aren't budging. And
yes.
I hear that a lot, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. But I feel like that's information though, right? I feel like that's information. So if you choose to stay, you choose to take this route, like we're talking about, doing the thing that's sacrifice or hard to do or whatever, then you have that information. Because this is the thing about couples, is a system, right? So you can't stay in your silos, you can't stay in your bubbles and expect it to work. So somebody has to move, right? I think that's a piece of it. So if you choose to be that person, your partner, whatever, hopefully you do it at the same time. That'd be nice, you know what I mean? But usually it doesn't work that way. One person does it first and then they feel, okay, they're working, they trying, I'm gonna try to. And that's usually what happens. And so I think if you're the one that you feel like you're primarily sacrificing and doing these things, and that you feel like that person's not delivering your, what you need and they're not working through, then that that's your information there, right? Like, oh, I've tried all these things and they're not doing the thing that works for me or makes me happy or whatever, within reason of your individuality, of course. Then that gives you information, right? Like, okay, you've made it this far, you've done it this far, and it's still not moving. Rather than not trying and living in an unhappy relationship, or just being honest with yourself about what you're willing to do or not do. Because we live in seasons, right? Maybe there's one season that you're like, yeah, I'll do all that. And I'm no, or the person pulls it out of you, maybe that's the person that pulled it out who want to work on it harder or whatever the case is. So I think regardless, you won't fail or lose out on it, because either way you would have tried, and would have known if you're willing to do it. I guess my main thing I'll say is, not pause, is that for people to have this conversation with themselves, you know what I mean? Like, what are you willing to actually do? And I tell them, like, I have couples who are on a, talking about divorce and all that type of stuff. And I say to them, I put it back on the table. Okay, we're talking about divorce. What does that look like? You know what I mean? Because people say things, it sounds okay, get off your chest, but are we going to walk through that actually emotionally, what it looks like, physically, family, like all of that stuff? And it's not to scare people, but it's like, if we're going to say it, let's talk about it. Let's say what we're talking about. So I think similar to this whole sacrificing, doing what's hard conversation is like, if you are not willing to do it, then let's just say that. Let's get to the point to say that and then be able to figure out what it looks like next.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that is spot on. Marriage Refresh said, I found that what happens is people don't do the work of going to prayer and therapy. Jesus plus therapy is okay. Thank you. Yes. And when someone is stuck like that, it's usually a trauma issue.
Yep.
Agreed. Yes. All right. So let me go back and let's see. Haitian Speed works with incarcerees. I didn't want to ignore you, Haitian Speed. All right, here we go. One of the populations that I work with are Black people that are incarcerated. A lot of them are vulnerable and cry for the first time ever in their life in front of me, and then they apologize for crying. Yeah. That is tough. One of the things that I often talk about is that grief, grief is something that we don't do, I don't think, enough of. We think of grief oftentimes only in death, but grief can be as a result of, or grief should be as a result of loss. And it can take many different forms, but we need to give ourselves room, space to grieve loss, period. That could be loss of relationship, loss of position, or hopes and dreams and aspirations that we had that did not come to fruition. And so, that I'm glad, Haitian Speed, that you are holding space for that population in that way. So that is very important work.
Yeah. And I really want to add that too. I think the relevance of the conversation is that we have people in our community, right, that are incarcerated. Unfortunately, they're some of the higher percentages, right? And so they are still part of that Black love holistic view, that I was kind of posing earlier, in that they have families, they have partners, they have people who are still in relationships with them, or maybe are just supporting them in their space. And so I think, those individuals who are in that time, they're in the worst time of their lives, hopefully it gets better from there, but they don't know if that's going to be the case. That's why they're there, right? So to feel love in that type of setting is probably almost, I imagine, non-existent, other than what they're getting from the outside. And so that vulnerable moment that's being shared with Haitian Speed and the people he works with is sacred. You know what I mean? It's like, man, like, where else are they going to be able to do that? Especially there, you know what I mean? Especially there. So that's important to say that.
Indeed. Yeah. So, Marriage Refresh, you said, love that. What does it look like? I think we kind of went back to Haitian Speed's comments, so I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. So if you want to go ahead and put that in the comments real quickly, that would be great, because we are at the end of our towards the end of our conversation, unless you wanted to say something as it relates.
Yeah, I was going to just remind what I think she was referring to when I was saying about people willing to do the work or try or whatever. And I was like, well, what does it actually look like? I think a lot of times people say with their words in hopes that, okay, if I do this one thing, or if I pass a situation or whatever, but what does it look like may be likely deeper than what you are expecting. Because especially if you decide to come to couples therapy potentially, or you're having a rough patch with your partner, it's probably more there than just pacifying, okay, I'll try, but not really talking about what does it mean to actually try within yourself and then also with your partner.
Yes, no, that you're right. That is exactly probably what she's talking about. So cool. All right. Well, again, we have come to the end of our conversation, but I want to give you an opportunity to give some closing comments and tell folks how they can connect with you.
Yeah. So thank you all again for watching. This is my favorite thing to talk about. I have built a whole practice on it. So obviously seeing clients all day and talking to y'all is like nothing for me. I really appreciate y'all being here, participating. Like I said, I'm your favorite relationship expert and now the Black love advocate, right? All things Black
Yes.
love, not just romantic, right? So sisterhood, brotherhood, Black business, just so y'all know, August is Black Business Month. I'll be having things online about that as well. Some things going on in my practice. I do see individuals and couples, all virtually. We have a support group we just launched. It's called Healing with My Sisters, with a young lady who just joined our practice. Her name is Kamisha Joseph. She's a therapist as well. The group is for women of color and Black women to specifically connect and find space for each other, to support each other, and also if they'd like to build a friendship past the group as well, to build it past the group, right? Not just in therapy. We also are going to be working on some retreats coming up as well. Our retreats are in person. Everything else you heard was virtual, including the group. But our retreats are in person. We do it about twice a year. We have one coming up in October. We haven't posted it yet, but y'all first to hear about it. And it's on self-worth. So if you would like, please follow me on Instagram at Heartfelt Counseling Center. I post all things Black love, relationships, and all our events coming up there.
Love it. That's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I have really enjoyed this conversation tonight. So thank you so much, Melissa, for being on here. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it as well. I want to thank the viewers definitely for your comments and your interactions. If you have found this to be helpful, let us know in the comments. Marriage refresh it. Yes, people say I'm going to divorce, but they don't actually think about what it looks like. So yes, thank you for that clarity. So let us know in the comments if you found this beneficial. I definitely have to share that Conversations with Nicole is on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Our focus is on mental health in Black and Brown communities specifically. And so we are encouraging folks to get their checkup from the neck up and be their best selves. And so we have clinicians like Melissa on for that very person. She is She is accepting new clients. She is based in Florida. She is doing telehealth. So be sure to connect with her. Maya said, thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you, Maya.
She had a pink hearts. That's my little symbol I'll be putting out there, right, Nicole? My little pink hearts. Thanks, Maya.
And Maya is marriage ready. She is gearing up, going to counseling and doing the work. So
Yes.
we are so happy for you and know you're going to be a beautiful bride. All right. Well, y'all are a little quiet. Oh, maybe they're a little slow. Here they go. All right. Rashonda, wonderful conversation tonight. Helpful dialogue shared tonight. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you. We
I'm
appreciate
gonna be on Singles Mingle next week. Nicole, gotta let them know.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. All right. Tell them about it.
Yes. So I'm gonna be on Singles Mingle. I told Nicole I'm just a part of the conversation. Nicole, Single Mingle family. I'm just gonna be sitting everywhere with them. But we're gonna be talking about part 2. Actually, we started the conversation. We didn't know we were gonna have a part 2, but it went so well. It's gonna be Black love and mental health, or Black relationships and mental health. So we're gonna talk about the mental health component of how we experience that in relationships specifically. We talk more about therapy tonight. We're talking about more of the mental health part of relationships as well. So next week.
Yes, next week, Tuesday, on Singles Mingle Facebook page and my personal Nicole Everett Facebook page. So 8:30 p.m. next Tuesday, and we'll be putting a flyer out hopefully tomorrow. All right, good deal. Well, y'all have a great rest of the evening, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.